I proudly announce and I proudly pride myself to be so big and so massive and so wild that I became bigger than anything the earth could ever imagine. This is how big self I became. I literally made everything bow before me. That's the kind of big self I am. Every single thing was bowing before me. When I showed myself with full of glory, full of power, literally all the powers were bowing before me. And to be oneself so big, you don't give that self a title of a Lord or MP. You give that self a title of a God. That's the only way you call it. When you become so big, there is nothing equal to that self, then you give a title of a God to that guy. And this is exactly how I got my God title I've given to myself. Literally everything from heaven to earth and earth to heaven, I made them all small in front of me and made them all bow before me. And if oneself possesses so much power within himself, can make everything from heaven to earth and earth to heaven bow before him, then that self is so big, he does not ever get the title of a Lord or an MP. He gets the title of the highest title, where you call it the gods, the title of a God, that is. And this is exactly how I got my title as God. There wasn't any one single thing that was there in front of me to show it's big. This is how majestic, massive I became by myself alone. And of course, by myself alone, I took all the powers of this earth, and I took all the powers of the heaven, and I placed it in one grip of mine. I said, the heaven and earth is right inside one grip of mine. This is how much power this is. This is how much power this is. The heaven and earth is right inside one grip of mine. And I even said that when myself will be here, I probably can turn days into nights and nights into days and weeks into months and months into weeks and years into decades and decades into years and centuries into millenniums and millennium into centuries. You know, a big change can happen within the earth and within the heavens. And that will be another recognition of the arrival of that self, myself. So when myself will arrive, one of my recognition is going to be that I'm going to have so much power that I can literally, every grain and every grain I can literally turn it into pieces. This is how much power I would have. I literally can tear and rip apart every road, every bridge, every mountain, every road, every bridge, every building, every mountain. And that kind of power, to have so much power in oneself, literally turn everything into powder and ashes. No one other than myself ever is going to have so much power. That's why nobody calls me a king, nobody calls me a lord, nobody calls me a monarch. Nobody calls me a queen. Nobody calls me anything. The only thing they call me is God, because my level is the level of God. That is. That is the level of God. Because level of God means that I can tear and rip apart everything from heaven to earth and earth to heaven. And there isn't anyone like me other than myself alone. There is no second to me other than myself alone. And this is why I'm too single out and too one. That's why I do not ever get a title of a Lord. I do not ever get a title of an MP. I do not ever get any title whatsoever. I get the title of the God. That's the title I get. That's my honorary recognition and ID. And I said, nobody ever questions about my wrath and my anger. This is the last thing you ever do with God. Any of the gods, and especially with God, this is the last thing you ever question. How angry can a God be? And how much wrath can a God possess? Because I take an oath with the wrath of mine, and I take an oath with the anger of mine, that with my wrath and anger, there's going to be an atomic nuclear war over this earth. If anyone ever questions how much wrath and how much anger I myself I have, with the wrath and anger of mine, a total devastation can happen between the heaven and earth, that literally all the stars and all the galaxies, the throne and the chair and the gardens and the hells and the angels and soul, all the heavenly domains and earthly domains, all that can crash into pieces with the ball earth, and it's going to tear and rip apart everything this ball earth is with. And nobody possesses that level of power and that level of might and glory when it comes to crashing and tearing and showing wrath and anger. That's the kind of wrathly guy I am, and that's the kind of anger this is. This is why I say, I take an oath with the wrath of mine. I said, my wrath is my wrath, and my anger is my anger. Nobody questions about the wrath of mine, and nobody questions about the anger of mine. It is with the wrath, and it is with the anger of mine, heaven and earth cries before me. Heaven and earth screams before me. It is the wrath and anger of mine, heaven and earth cries and begs before me. It is the wrath and anger of mine, heaven and earth bows itself before me. That's the kind of wrathly self I am, and that's the kind of wrathly God I am. Full of anger this is, and full of wrath.